Hi and Assalamualaikum. Today we will be reviewing two articles regarding teachers and students' attitudes towards implementation of English education policy in Thailand. So Yiling, would you like to start the first summary of the first article?
Okay, so the first article delves into the perceptions of Thai English language teachers at an upper secondary school level on English test in Ordinary National Education Test, which is ONET. The English test in ONET is said to align with the basic education core curriculum, aiming at establishing students' communicative competence in English according to Thai Ministry of Education. It is found out that most of the Thai EFL teachers are not satisfied with the English test in ONET. Generally, they believe that the test didn't assess students' all abilities for using English in real life and lack listening, speaking, and writing ability assessment. Thus, in their opinion, it doesn't align with the national curriculum. They feel pressure from school principals in chasing high test scores and reflected that English tests also affected their teaching practices, such as the test-driven teaching method, ignoring the actual goal of communication in English, not covering all content from the curriculum. So, in my opinion, the Thai EFL students of the English test fell short on testing all four skills of English of students, which is not in accordance with the national education curriculum of English communicative competence. I partly agree with their perspectives. The reason is that even though the English tests ignore other aspects like writing, speaking, and listening, it indeed built their English vocabulary and laid the basis for more advanced English learning and better communication ability in English to some extent. However, in bigger picture, it can influence the mindset of students that viewing English just as a test instead of a tool for communication. To further illustrate, students take the English test aiming at passing it with high scores, which makes them focusing on memorization and rote learning rather than applying it in different contexts. Therefore, it impedes their flexible use of English in a way echoing the teacher's perception. So, what's your opinion?
For me, from the article, I think that the teachers agreed that ONET need to include other aspects. However, they would still use the same teaching method even there was no test, like no more ONET. This piqued my interest considering how they would also agree that they teach based on the task content to help raise the score, which circle back to teaching limited aspect of English to the student, even if there is no longer a task to constrain them. Um, this logic could be due to the fact that a significant number of students will remain within their home country post education to pursue their professional endeavors. While the importance of English proficiency is undeniable, a considerable portion of individuals still hold the notion that they can thrive within their own national context without the involvement of Western lifestyle, which is like speaking English. Those who have deeper passion for the English language but feel like the basic knowledge provided at school is not enough would have been like by then look for extra knowledge on their own and would have most likely later on make use of their proficiency in a more international setting.
Okay, for me, I agree on the part that the test doesn't assess all aspects of students' English abilities, particularly lacking in listening, speaking, and writing. But also, the teachers highlight the pressure to achieve high scores and how it influences their teaching methods, that leading to a focus more on the test preparation over language learning goals. But of course, on the other hand, they might also consider the challenge that they will face in designing a comprehensive assessment tool. In my opinion, for a solution, it starts with a constructive feedback. They should communicate their concerns to the relevant authorities and also emphasize the importance of a well-rounded assessment that aligns with their teaching goals. Maybe this can suggest improvements or alternatives that better reflect the national curriculum. I think.
As for me, the study sheds light on important issues surrounding Thailand's Ordinary National Educational Test, ONET, providing valuable insight into the difficulties faced by the English as a foreign language teachers. I agree with the studies and the main key findings, which show that teachers dissatisfied with the ONET and its limits as an indicator of students' real-life English language ability. So the emphasis on test-driven instruction and the impact of the ONET's high stakes on teachers' practices are consistent with the literature's concerns. The study correctly highlights and emphasizes the need for a re-evaluation of the ONET, recommending that the test include a larger range of language abilities, including listening, speaking, and writing, to fit more closely with the national curriculum. And the recommendation to reduce the pressure on teachers to focus on test preparation is consistent with the larger goal of developing students' communicate ability. Yeah, that's all from me.
So like as mentioned, the ONET is the national examination in Thailand, right? And it serves the purpose of being a gatekeeper for the university entry for the students. So in a way, it's similar to SPM, right? Considering as it is one of the biggest tests a student can sit for, I understand why the teachers feel that it is not a good indicator of a student's fluency in English because the curriculum and what is being tested and taught does not align with the basic education core curriculum. If we go through the BECC, under the foreign language section, they have specifically mentioned the preferable outcome after they've finished their studies. And what is the student's expected ability in the foreign language. But because the teacher said that the exams are mostly focused on the grammar and vocabulary aspect of the language, then I guess it's safe to say that they haven't fulfilled what is in the BECC, which has several mentions of communication skills, like the students should have the ability to introduce themselves and all that, right? And another thing that's interesting to me is that the teachers aren't able to help even if they wanted to because they feel pressurized by the school's principal. They want their students to do well in the ONET. And again, the ONET isn't particularly focused on the communication skills. It's just focused on the vocab and grammatical aspect of the language, right? So the students are not able to use the language in a daily basis, as they're mainly taught the technical aspect of the language. So I think it's important that they shift their focus and make changes to the syllabus, make it so that everyone can at least utilize English in their daily lives. And I think amendments must be made to the exams as well. Their focus should be on the language wholly instead of just two aspects of the language. Yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah, I have like similar thoughts, and because majority of the teachers themselves agree that ONET is not a good indicator of the student's ability in using language in real life situation, because the test only, like what Sarah said, assesses vocabulary and grammar. So achieving a high score does not necessarily indicate fluency in English. Similarly, like obtaining a low score does not imply an inability to speak English proficiently. And I think that fluency in language involves more than a mere demonstration of grammatical accuracy or an extensive vocabulary, and it should encompass more on the ability to effectively communicate thoughts, convey ideas, and comprehend nuances in various situations. So, like even native English speakers themselves do not speak with perfect grammar at all times, right? So, assessing someone's English speaking ability through a grammar-focused test is a bit of an unreasonable benchmark. So, I think, like what Sarah said, assessing language proficiency should encompass a broader spectrum that includes pragmatic skill, language use, contextual understanding, and the application of language skills in diverse real-life scenarios. Yeah, so I guess that concludes our first article. Should we move on to the second article? And Lily, would you like to summarize the second article?
Yeah, sure. So moving on to the next summary of the second article. The article explores the motivation and attitudes of Thai EFL secondary school students towards English learning. So the study, which was based on a survey of 640 participants using a modified version of Gardner's attitude or motivation test battery, found that students are strongly motivated to learn English for educational and professional purposes. However, many express dissatisfaction with the efficiency of English language learning in classrooms. believing that it needs to satisfy the real life needs. So the discussion covers a wide range of motivational issues, including emotional, educational, personal, and professional components. While most students are enthusiastic about studying English, they report feeling nervous, especially while speaking the language. So the pedagogical implications for EFL teachers are outlined, including the need to develop strong teacher-student relationships to establish a welcoming classroom environment. So according to the research, a cooperative environment and support can assist in reducing student anxiety. So in my opinion, I do agree with this article. So the article's point of view on the significance of understanding students' motivations and attitudes in the language learning process, particularly in the context of English language education in Thailand. The emphasis on student views help to provide a more complete knowledge of the obstacles and potential areas for development in English language learning. So the findings that students are strongly motivated to study English for educational and professional purposes are consistent with the global relevance of English as a lingua franca and its usefulness in a variety of professional professions. So this motivation is a positive factor that educators can use to improve learning results. Yeah, that's all from me. Moving on to the next opinion.
Adding on to what Lily said, I'm actually really happy that the students are actually motivated to learn the English language, because in a sense they know of the many opportunities that the English language may bring them. As mentioned in the article, they wanted to learn English for academic and professional purposes. So that means they are aware, they do know of the importance of the language. But because they lack the space and chances to learn and use the language properly, they have that feeling of disheartedness, um, and dejection. I mean, where else can they use the language if not in their classroom? The only chance they get to speak English is in the class, but because the school and the teachers are so dead set in achieving good marks in the ONET, which is again highly focused on vocab and grammar, then they don't get the full experience of using the language. Honestly, I feel like it's the school and the teacher's job to accommodate the students' wants and need, which is to learn the English language. But at the same time, we can't fully expect that from them or blame them because of the ONET. So they are put in that predicament, and unless changes are made to the ONET, then they can't do much, I think. So, but the high motivation within the students is a good indicator that they want to learn the language, and I think it's only fair that the parties involved, particularly the government and schools, take the necessary actions to ensure that students learn the language wholly. So again, it all comes down to making adjustments to the syllabus and the ONET so that the students can get the most out of the lessons. And yeah, that's my opinion on the article.
I agree with Sarah Imanina, but to add more points, I saw that from the article they did an assessment on emotional aspect. From there, I understand that I can see the major setback on learning English is students confident in their language ability despite their positive views and passion on the English language. It doesn't help when they themselves or people around them show a discouraging automatic reaction to mistakes when practicing the language. While this automatic reaction may not necessarily carry negativity, they often serve as a self-defense mechanism, which is understandable. It happened to the most of us. I disagree with the fact that some students stated that their classmate would laugh at them when they make mistake, or how the teacher would blame them for their mistakes and failure rather than motivating them and paying attention to students with higher proficiency. To the extent that even the students are aware of the environment they're in and call out on it, it shows that how the obvious need for changes of environment and mentality. They should not, by any means, be considered as a hardships of gaining knowledge. The students should not be experiencing these treatments in their educational years, as it is the most crucial time for their self-development.
Yes, for me, I think this valid feeling that the students express satisfaction with the efficiency of English language in classroom. And it is a common challenge in language education globally, even in Malaysia. I agree with the acknowledge that English language learning should address the real life needs as there might be a perceived gap between classroom instruction and the practical application. And also, the reported nervousness, particularly while speaking the language, is a common language, common challenge in language learning. And also, we as a student also sometimes happen to be the anxiety. And of course, this can impact the students' willingness to engage in communicative activities. And addressing this concern is crucial for creating a positive and supporting learning atmosphere that can contribute to reducing the students' anxiety and enhancing their motivation. I think that's all for me.
For me, different from Shu's perspective, I focus on the English teachers' teaching method. I agree their students' opinion on improving their teaching method, because they thought that Thai language teacher should be more responsible to make students enjoy the class and active learning English by various interactive learning activities. Because the national curriculum of English education is to make sure students command the ability to communicate in English, which is inherently inseparable with teachers' teaching practices as the implementation of the English education policy. So from a developmental perspective in second language learning, language is learned through social interaction, which proves the possibility to learn English successfully through more interactive learning activities. For example, teachers can conduct a role play game where students can employ their English language skills they learned in class. This will help prepare students for the real life English communication with native speakers. What's more, learning activities as more fun, which motivates students actually enjoy learning English rather than passive learning, such as rote memorization. That's my opinion.
Yes, my opinion, I would like to go back to Sarah Imanina's point. I agree that there is need for some sort of amendment to the current implementation of the language policy, because the students themselves in the article said that they wish they could learn English through communicative activities rather than the rote memorization, which was the main focus in their own test, right? Because it is very grammar and vocabulary focused, and it does not help the students to learn how to actually communicate in English. Although there are people that might argue that yes, they might acquire vocabularies and grammar rules because of the test. However, if it's not practiced, what they have learned, then they might as well not learn it, as sooner or later what they have learned will be forgotten. And additionally, based on my knowledge gained from the previous articles, it seems that the teacher also could not do anything about the content of the lessons, as they are also pressured by higher ups to produce high scores from the student for the ONET. And since everybody is not happy with the current implementation of the language policy, it is shown through the country's low position in the ranking of the English proficiency among the ASEAN countries. So this highlights the need for a shift in the language policy to prioritize communication skills over mere exam-based learning. Ultimately, it will benefit the students in becoming proficient English communicators rather than just test takers. So I think we all have given our opinions, and we all can conclude that there is a need for some sort of shift in the implementation of the language policy, right? Like some sort of amendment to be to like what do you say? Encompasses all the four language skills like reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So that wraps up our podcast for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.